Good afternoon. The Transportation Committee meeting on October the 9th, 2024 is set to begin, and I would like to have a roll call.
Rhonda Pendell Charles here.
Thank you.
Alderman Savage here, present.
Karma O'Neill, so we have a quorum today. I'll take a motion for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Going right ahead, I will entertain a motion for approval of the minutes from 9/11/2024.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Great. Next up on our agenda, we have AP 2224 appointment, Mr. Robert Madden for Transportation Board. Do we have him come?
Yeah.
Is he here? He's not here.
Mr. Madden's not here.
All right.
I would move to postpone until the next meeting.
All right.
Second.
Second. All in favor of postponing the appointment of Mr. Madden?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Second.
Thank you. We're going to postpone that to our next Transportation Committee meeting.
Madam Chair, can I also just say, I guess for staff, if they have problems making during the day, maybe we could just accept a written statement.
Yes.
If our, I mean, in particular, would like to know more about why they want to serve, a little more information on that.
Great. Thank you. We'll make note of that. Postponed. All right. Next up on the agenda, I am going to go a little bit out of order because our agenda is had one thing out of order, and I'm going to go to ID 1124, which is our Transportation Board update. Kirk Riegel.
Thank you. I'm Kurt Riegel, chairman of the Annapolis Transportation Board. I came by bicycle today, and as I went through West Annapolis, I saw a backup of cars that would have made me late. It's sort of a schadenfreude experience to go past on two wheels when all of those four-wheel vehicles are standing still. There are just two things. You referred to us items of legislation having to do with the parking districts, which we're finishing up, and will transmit our remarks to you and the City Council. I don't see a problem. Basically, it looks okay to me, but I will dot the I's and cross the T's and send it on to you. The second matter has to do with Parking District 5, which is still not acted on. We provided an update to the city regarding Parking District 5, together with some data that were gathered that don't change anything, they just reinforce our original recommendation. And that's really all I have, apart from a quick slideshow that I would like to show. This will be repetitive for those of you who went to the Netherlands. Two of you did, is that right? Yes, but I'm going to try to put a quick spin on it to make it relevant to Annapolis. The slides are completely out of order, so I'm winging it. We're starting here in West Annapolis on Melvin Avenue, and you will see what was done by the city last year in order to accomplish the goal of slowing traffic, calming traffic, because residents of the street had voiced concerns over that. And so that was the option that was selected by the city. It has some real disadvantages, disadvantages that you would not usually see in the Netherlands. There is no physical separation between bicycles and automobile traffic. and a number of parking spaces are lost in this configuration in order to accommodate the islands. This is accomplishing the goal by subtracting utility from the street. The other approach, which, let's see, what do I do? This, I believe, is it. Another approach for the same street to, yeah.
May I ask a clarifying question? What city was this from?
This is Annapolis, Melvin Avenue in West Annapolis.
Oh, that's from Melbourne, okay.
Right. This is an option which was floated. It received very little support for reasons that here's my take on it. First of all, anything that we propose in Annapolis which is new raises opposition. This is a phenomenon you are all familiar with. And we have seen this reaction to the public in many, many cases. For example, when Quiet Waters Park was proposed, the neighbors fought it tooth and nail. When it went in very short order, the neighbors and everybody else in the city acknowledged it to be a tremendous contribution. The Baltimore and Annapolis Trail, when proposed, was fought tooth and nail by the neighbors immediately abutting the trail. But with time, they came to not only accept it, but realize it was an improvement to the community. Neighbors on this street were initially resistant to this kind of thing. This approach does provide for physical separation, which is, well, semi-physical separation provided by the cars, which puts pedestrians and bicycles on one side of a barrier by parked cars, and it accomplishes the calming goal by narrowing the street. Narrow streets give slower traffic than wide streets, and the design defect of Melvin Avenue was its width. That's really the root cause. So this is an option which was considered and rejected. So I'm going to go through these Dutch slides. Here I am arrived at Schiphol Airport.
Chairman?
Yeah.
Mr. Riegel, sorry, another clarification. Was that, so you're saying that was rejected for Melvin in lieu of the first
Melvin.
one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The neighbors were not happy with that because it's a change, at least. There are other arguments too. But it does accomplish the goal of calming traffic, and it does accomplish the goal of increasing safety for both bicycles and pedestrians, and it does accomplish the goal of not losing utility or parking spaces. But that's in the past. So there I am, arrived at Schiphol Airport, which you have seen. Schiphol is not just an airport, it is a multi-mode transportation center for airplanes, trains, trams, automobiles. Everything converges there at Schiphol. In my Dutch hometown, this is the parking lot for bicycles right next to the rail station. People by the hundreds and thousands park their bicycles after going into the rail station, the transportation hub, and going on to wherever they are for that day. Bicycle transportation is provided free. It's mostly sheltered and accomplishes the goal of getting people out of four-wheeled vehicles. This is the town of Leiden. With the windmill in the background, and you can see multimodal use. You've got the pedestrians on the right, a physically separated bicycle path, and then automobile traffic at the left. Curiously, the city parking lot is just to the right of the windmill there and underground. You can't even tell it's there, but there's a very large parking lot underground, probably very close to sea level. And there's a very typical Dutch street scene. This is multimodal transportation with bicycles, boats, barges carrying tourists to and fro. This is the famous NS train. Nederlands Spoorweg. It's the Netherlands Railway. It's amazing. There is a train going where you want to go every 10 or 15 minutes to anywhere in the country, and you can set your watch by the trains. This is just a typical Dutch canal next to a windmill, and the thing I want to show you is that that little structure at the end of the canal is an elevator. And the elevator goes down to the city parking garage, which is underneath the canal. Astonishing engineering works. This is the entrance to the parking garage. More bicycle storage. And this is how bicycles get on and onto a train which happens to be underground. There are tracks that go along parallel to the staircase so that you can conveniently get your bicycle up and down. Here's a very typical Dutch scene of people going back and forth together with pedestrians on a shopping street. And this is just a priceless thing. You see mothers ferrying their children to and from school on these wonderful cargo bikes. That's a typical cargo bike. Another Dutch mother ferrying her child to and from. This is just a random photograph of the computer screen in a train as I was riding from one Dutch city to another. Snelheid is velocity, speed, and it's going 139 kilometers per hour, which is about 85 miles per hour. Imagine the metro train in Washington going 85 miles an hour. It won't happen. That's where I worked when I lived there, at the Sterrenwacht, an observatory. Has nothing to do with transportation. This is the most amazing transportation option I saw during our Dutch visit this last summer. That's a French Citroën, vintage mid-1970s, which was retrofitted with electric motors so that it became an electric vehicle. An astonishing sight indeed. It must have cost a fortune. Totally impractical, but charming too. This is a very typical park. We're walking along. We see goats and sheep just resting along the way. And the street to the right is not for cars. That's for bicycles. Pedestrians get the narrow street, bicycles get the wide one. I visited a friend when we were there, and it's common. We did all of our travels with no automobile, so I went back and forth using trains and trams, and here we are at a place that's about 2 blocks from his house. These cargo bikes that you saw women carrying their children back and forth on, they are not cheap. This one is nearly $6,000. If you can imagine spending that much for an electric bicycle. This is the chipkaart, which is used for paying for transportation. In Annapolis, we have, I've lost track of it, it's 3, 4, or 5 apps, ways of paying for parking in Annapolis. In the Netherlands, you buy this cart and you can use it on any form of transportation anywhere in the country. One card. So they have cracked the problem of making it simple for people who live there. And I urge anything you can do to make our system simpler and more friendly. People will use it. The simpler it is, the more it will be used. That's just an entryway to the train. You can put bicycles on trains, and people do. Most of the train riding is on the honor system. It's rare, but we actually caught a conductor checking these cards to make sure that you had entered by swiping your card, entering. The Dutch are very honest people. He hardly ever catches anybody, but they do random checks just to see. This is sort of the ideal transportation, multimodal transportation path with pedestrians on the right, bicycles in the middle, and cars on the left. And you notice there is a physical separation, which provides for safety and comfort and makes people say, hey, I'm not likely to get killed if I go out on 2 wheels, and so people do. This is the most amazing accommodation to bicycles I've ever seen anywhere. This is, the red thing is a bicycle overpass, which passes an intersection of freeways, so that it's possible here for bicycles not to interact with automobiles at all. Not cheap, but that's how much the Dutch care about multimodal transportation. That's another thing showing the separation, physical separation between bicycles and cars. And yet another one, there's a roundabout with, the red thing is for bicycles, everything else is for cars, and it's possible to navigate around this thing with very little interaction between the cars and the bicycles. We have very little in Annapolis, which is a true separation. And I guess that must be it. I seem to be at the end. Very short presentation, but I just wanted to give you a flavor for how things can be and urge you to take every step you can in those directions.
Will you work on getting us funding for that? Will you work on getting us funding for that?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions? Right, thank you. All right, we are going to, our next piece of legislation is O1624, Special Residential Parking Districts, the permit renewal. I can speak to a small portion of this. I know that it's gone through first reader at the council, and basically we are moving towards renewing parking, residential parking permits when you need them instead of all at one time. So instead of having them all done in 1 week of the year, if you move into a house in September, you'll get a parking permit that is good for 1 year and you'll renew it that year. In working with our parking contractors, they all agree that this would, one, simplify the system, and two, make it easier for residents who weren't worrying about if they move in September and pay and then have to pay again in July. And their lease is up in September and they decide to move out and they've had to pay for a full year of parking. Are there any questions? No? All right, I'll entertain a motion for a favorable recommendation to the council.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. Next up is O2524, Special Residential Parking Districts. I know that Transportation Board is still reviewing some of this. A lot of it is just reallocating a few of the streets, changing them from one district to another. One question that had come up in the Transportation Board was whether St. John Street was going to maintain its 9-hour parking, and I was told yes, in fact, that is. So none of the hours changed, just some of the streets changing districts. Are there any questions, comments? Right, I'll entertain a motion for a favorable
So moved.
recommendation. I'm
Second.
sorry. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I had the giggles today, I'm sorry. I think I'm tired. All right, next up, we have ID 1024, Transportation Department update. Marcus Moore. Welcome, Marcus.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and council members, members of the Transportation Committee. I want to update you on a few things that are going on in our agency. Most specifically, our pilot, our microtransit pilot. As you guys know, as we talked about a little bit over the summer, this started out in July, actually July 15th of this summer. And concurrently for the first month, we were running the orange and the purple. And to give a little background on what the microtransit operation is doing, it is replacing the two underutilized routes, which is the orange route and the purple route. Since we started in July 15th, we've carried over 4,100 people. To give some context to that, if I can just break down September for you. Last September 2022, if you look at the orange and purple ridership, it was about 1,700 and some. And then in 2023, just a microtransit, we did 1,900 for just the month of September.
Oh, September. Okay.
September. So that's about 12%.
Give those numbers again.
Okay, yeah, since we began, over 4,100 riders since July 15th. So if I just isolate just the month of September, last September when the orange and purple were operating for those 30 days independently, but combined, they had about 1,700 riders in the month of September 2022. So this September of 2023, it's just microtransit. We did a little over 1,900, which equates to about a 12% increase in ridership of those two underutilized routes, which we think is really good. It's still, for a pilot program to have been in operation less than 90 days, it's really picked up steam. And even on our first day, when you're looking at you love to say build it and they'll come. It's like make sure they understand and how to get on and how to utilize it, and we're working towards all of that. But day number one on Monday the 15th of July, we had about 9 riders, and it stayed pretty constant. And I want to put a caveat there that the Orange operates or operated Monday through Friday, 5:30 in the morning to 7 o'clock at night. So microtransit was running at the same time and still grabbed about 9 riders of what that other service was carrying. And I can get specifics on that, but I would say it was probably double, 18 riders or so. Orange was very low. The purple picks up in the evenings, Monday night through Saturday night, 7 to about 10:40. All day Sundays and those holidays that we run a Sunday service. So a Sunday for a purple is about 30 some odd riders. Excuse me, maybe a little more than that. I would say probably around 130. And we were doing about that right now. I can get the exact numbers if you need, so you can just kind of get a comparison. We're equal to, in most cases, greater than what we were doing. The price is the same, the service is the same, and the on-demand. So if, let's just say the 4 of us were on that route and we're all going to the same place, we're not making every single stop along the way that the orange or purple would. So going from the mall to Eastport could take 45 minutes. But if we were dropping off along the way, it would take probably less than half of that time. So that's what we look at when microtrains are on demand. It really is a derivative of a shared ride of how many people are there and where they're actually going. But clearly not every stop needs to be made. As I made mention of the territory of microtransit, the orange route doesn't go on Saturday. So it's replacing the orange and the purple. So there's no microtransit during the day right now on Saturday until 7 p.m. And that's a big day. So we want to look at broadening our scope to do more in other areas that may be considered a food desert or not areas where you can get around as well. And we like to hear from you, and we like to do what we did last year. Last October, we went on a trip. We got a chance with the 3 of you to sample most of our routes. The orange, the green, the brown, and the red. In those 3 hours, it was a quick on and off. We made sure our connections were there. But I challenge you to come with us and book it yourself, or other ways that you can actually call transportation, 410-263-7964. And if you have it on your phone, you're able to see when your bus is due to arrive. When you're on there, you can actually see your bus moving along. We're still working out some glitches, as we talked last month, specifically with Alderman Savage with the Google platform and the Apple Play Store. We used to have more of a problem with Apple versus Google. Now Google is becoming more of a problem as far as proving or providing the information to show that this is legitimate. So I'm good that they're fact checking it. But we can still obviously take the calls when our office is open to make sure no one is left behind. At the beginning, I want to also note that we did have a lot of redundancy of supervision out there to make sure things were working, and there's a rider feedback. So we're ever evolving with it, and I think we've come off to a really good start. And this was done with enhancement funds that we had that were deferred to this past fiscal year, and we have enough for operating expenses for the next 2 fiscal years. So we're really, happy about how it's gone. We do know that we'll still need fixed route throughout our city, but the way we can, put this on demand to better use or more usefulness, to get to places, as Alderman Savage made mention, the Baywoods, or further areas where you don't need to go every 30, 40 minutes on demand, further down to other areas that can use it, even though they have their own bus service, but people want to be independent. We don't want to go when that senior center said our bus is going to the mall on Saturdays at this time. Our TDP, Transit Development Plan, is in full swing. Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Can I ask one last? Just want to ask regarding the on-demand. I had a couple questions on that. What's the vehicle that operates that route?
What kind of vehicle?
Yeah.
It's considered a Ford E450 Cutaway. A Cutaway is just on a Ford chassis. That bus has 16 seats. We're looking at acquiring new buses that are even smaller. So it's not one of the larger one that you see, the 23 or 26-seater heavy-duty buses. Because the most we've ever had right now, unless there's been a family that I'm not aware of, but 8 people. But I think maybe Morris Bloom, if they all go together, they're going to Grawls, you might have, a dozen people. We're finding that a bus that size is optimal usage for that type of application, but it's an E450 Ford Cutaway bus. And all of our buses have, are wheelchair accessible.
So what does the driver do when there aren't any calls? Does he or she stay at the transit hub, or are they driving around the whole time?
Not driving, but positioning. So they're kind of finding out where they need to be next. It's kind of hard to say, but they may stage at Eastport Shopping Center, or maybe the Safeway on Forest Drive, or at our location. Because when the call comes in, it's going to go to their iPad, and then the driver will see that the call has been summoned, and wherever that bus is, it'll give them, the algorithms will tell them how long it'll take to get to Church Circle from wherever they are, and the person waiting for the bus can see when their bus should arrive. So that's a good question. We haven't said that they have to be wherever X equals, because just so dynamic of the next ride, we would never get it right of how close we should be or could be for the next person calling.
No, that's good. I think it's better for them to stay still than drive around.
Yeah, definitely not wasting gas and
emissions.
moving around. No.
But one of the reasons I'm asking is because, just got back from Sweden, and they actually, Stockholm in particular, has 100% of their public transit is already carbon neutral, renewable energies. And so 100% already. And so my next question would be, you said you're talking about new vehicles. I hope they're going to be electric.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Because it seems like a perfect one. The mayor also saw some ferries where they would plug in for, I think it was, what do you say, 10 minutes, I think. Every few hours, they'd plug in for 10 minutes and get enough charge to keep continuing. So it seems like it would be a good setup that would work well for an EV.
It is, and it will. I'm glad you asked that question to kind of bring it back to the forefront. We're expecting our first 2 electric vehicles in the next 30 to 45 days.
Okay.
We're still working on the infrastructure, of course, for charging, but we can get some portable chargers that from the same company. I don't think they'll really be here in October, but I would think before Thanksgiving. They'll definitely be moved around to give everybody a flavor for it. Our goal for this one, starting out, will most likely be on the magenta shuttle, or I want to call it the free downtown shuttle, because it may not still be that color. But also maybe the green route or others. After that, we're working on other buses coming subsequent to that, but that may be 12 to 18 months out from now. Smaller buses, more carbon neutral. That can better application for our small city, like an 8 to 10 seater. To give you some other background on transit driving, anything with more than 16 seats, even counting the driver, is going to require a commercial driver's license with a passenger endorsement. Anything larger than 26,000 pounds is require a CDL with air brakes because of stopping. So the bigger buses that you see, are not only with the seats, but with, those stopping. So they have to have a P endorsement and B endorsement. So getting a smaller bus, you're not always looking for that good driver with a commercial driver's license. We can look for a good driver with a C-class driver's license to keep things moving. So you're right, as we have a plan to replace our fleet, those older buses that you see, the larger ones, are heavy-duty buses, 10 or 12 years, 350,000 miles. And some of them have quite a bit more because we've been doing so well with keeping them running. Just comes to mind our bus number 4311, which doesn't mean a whole lot to you, but it's our hybrid diesel. And it's on the stadium route, and it looks like a trolley. That is a 2011, 13 years old, and it probably has 600,000 miles on it. So certain things that we can keep going, but there is a plan to replace the light duty, as we mentioned, the Ford Cutaway. Those are light duty, 5-year, less than 300,000 mile buses. So we have a few in our, a few of our buses are probably coming up on 5 years. They're in the process of being replaced for something smaller. We can see that we need maybe a few of the larger ones, but not a complete fleet, maybe 4. But the other ones would be smaller, as you made mention, to navigate the city streets. And if we can do the on demand, we can just have them moving as needed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A question, Director Moore. I know the fire department has indicated to us with their vehicles, oftentimes the larger ones take maybe 1.5 to 2 years to get it to us. Do you have the same issue? I mean, do you have to order yours 1.5 or 2 years ahead of time?
Yes.
Because of a lot of logistical issues and that sort of thing?
Because we get the federal funds from the government, we'll piggyback on other MTA, FTA contracts. So the ones I'm making mention now, the electric buses, have been ordered 1.5 years ago. So they're coming right in. So when we have our schedule of our buses that we have now, you don't turn them over all at once. You'll never make it. So as some drop off and to be retired, others are coming in. So it's a continuum as we come up with our plans for our next fiscal year, what our bus replacement plan is, because we'll have to come up with our local share, or whatever that may be. And unfortunately, during the pandemic, the state didn't make a contribution, because normally it's 80-10-10, 80% federal, 10% state, 10% local match. During the pandemic, I want to say FY24 or 3, we had to come up with the 20%. Which, made some changes with our fleet manager, Mr. Hallworth. He's looking at the same kind of thing because he's helping us with buses, the fire department, police department, and others for replacement of not just dump trucks and fire engines, but street sweepers as well. So it's a concerted effort with all the departments that have vehicles for public usage to keep our streets maintained with plowing and our bus system running. That's a really good question that we really have to stay on top of it, and you keep moving them around as something's dropping off and looking at what happens. Of course, the fly in the ointment is the what if, an accident. So you have a spare ratio. Mm-hmm. And the government will generally say 25% of your what you need on a daily basis should be from a spare ratio. But if you look at a small system like ours, and 25% may come out to be 3.7 buses. How do you get 0.7? Even if you get some of those, you got to go up to the next bus. MTA Baltimore may have 1,500 buses. So 25% is make more of a doable number. When they look at their buses or their rail cars, light rail or subway, the same thing, they're having supply chain demand issues as well. So you do always want to have, because of the what ifs, that you can't really predict. An accident is just that. You want to look at preventable, avoidable, non-preventable if somebody else ran into us.
And you work with our risk manager and take a look at the data and see what our numbers and stats look like and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. We do, a lot of defensive driving stuff. We're working with our risk manager, and of course our superintendent of operations does a really good job of just learning from what happened, how we can, get out of harm's way. Because some things could be non-preventable, meaning I didn't do anything, but it could be avoidable because where did I place myself? For example, you're stopped at a light and you have a crosswalk a few feet in front of you. You're stopped. Somebody hits you from the back and you run to somebody else. So how do you avoid that? By call a space cushion. So looking at historical data from our risk manager, you can see what kind of accidents you're having. Rear end, running into fixed objects, not giving yourself enough room and all. Then our fleet manager, what do we have in the budget to look at replacement? We try not to defer, because being in a supply chain, just as you mentioned, Alderman Pendle Charles, that it could be a year and a half. If we defer a year, add another year, because we got out of line for somebody else, because we're all pulling from the same pot. There's not many organizations that make electric vehicles, electric buses. So then you got the new kids on the block are going to have the Altoona testing, which most mechanical things will go through in Altoona, Pennsylvania, to test out the worthiness and all the other components. Those kind of things, we got to take it all into consideration.
Right.
But luckily, to have a really good risk manager and a really good fleet manager and our own staff to maintain the vehicles, we've stayed ahead of the curve as best we could.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Director Moore.
Thank you. Alderman Savage.
Just another quick question. Do you have a time frame on when the Google Android app is going to be released in the store?
Yeah, I wish I could say yesterday. Let's hope it was. It won't be as long as it has been. I'll find out tomorrow, and I'll be sure to get back to you to find out where we are in the process, because we as a city had to confirm that IT Curves was legitimate, and we did that way back in, I want to say, late August, early September, to send to Google and all the information they need to present. So it should be soon.
Well, are you doing that or the contractor?
Contractor,
Yeah.
but we still had to approve, like on our letterhead, with the city that, showed that we are partnering with IT Curves. They're not making something up. There's, all kinds of bogus things that could be put in a store, a Apple store, a Google Play store, that may not be legitimate. So I guess they're doing their due diligence right up front.
Yeah. Well, I just point out that the contractor at our last meeting said it would take 3 weeks, and it's now been probably around 4. So in my opinion, they're breaching the contract, because they should have had fully operational apps for both stores when we gave them the contract. So I'm still not happy with them. They need to get on the ball here.
What I think happened, and without guessing, but I think what it was on and turned off. It was fully operational, and I'm not sure what happened along the process that said, let's stop and make sure everything is together. Because you're absolutely right. With the RFP, they were awarded back in January, and they started developing the algorithms for our specific service here throughout the spring and early summer to be ready for a July turn-on. But let me find out where we are and what actually happened. I can get a full update for you.
I mean, can you tell them if they don't have it done by the next meeting, I'm going to go to the city attorney, because this is not helping us. It's not helping this program to not have everybody be able to access this app and access this service. I know they can call the number, but it's, in my opinion, again, just a half. It's not a full rollout of the program unless we actually have all that done. So.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Totally agree. Thank you.
Thank you. You started talking about the TDP.
Yeah, so an update on it. We actually had a kickoff meeting of our transit development plan, which we're required to do because of the federal funds we get every 5 years. You might remember in 2019, a presentation was made to council. I want to say like October, November, then. It made some recommendations, and one of them was the microtransit and to take a closer look at the Orange Route and other. So this is like a 6.5 month ordeal, and we're probably a little more than halfway through. They have conducted several surveys. We've had work sessions with our stakeholders and advisory committees. I've invited you guys to partake. There might be one more, but if you still would like to take a survey or others, we have it both in Spanish and English on our website and on our bus. So looking at, compiling all those surveys, the tech memos, and the information obtained from the last 3 meetings. Our neighbors in the county, Anne Arundel County Transportation, just finished their 5-year TDP this summer. So we're just a couple months behind them, and how the two agencies can, work together and be more of a cohesive unit with connectivity. There are a few places, as you might know, that we do connect with the county and other areas, which is, number one is the mall. Number two would be Weston Calvert Church Circle. So we have a bus that comes from the city of Baltimore, which is the MTA 70. It's probably like an hour and a half headway. That is their longest route. But looking at the county, we're connecting with the orange and the gold at the mall. And as you probably remember, in 2018, we operated them. The county took them over in 2018. I think they could operate them more efficient and cheaper. Then they being MTA, have the other commuter buses that come through during rush hour times, Monday through Friday, up West Street, making few stops, Church Circle, Library, park and ride on Harry Truman, going to DC and to Baltimore. There may be 4 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon. But we want to look at how we can expand our service and make it more user-friendly. With the same company, IT Curves, we've updated how we take reservations for our complimentary ADA service. Because we were using an old, outdated web-based program to take reservations. It worked, it served its purpose. It was, we print out a manifest and the dispatcher had one and so did the driver. Now they're using the same technology where they have a tablet. It's been upgraded to handle both sides of that equation as well. So little by little, coming into that, making it a little bit more user-friendly, but how we can grab better data to look at how our system is operating.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Director Moore, how feasible would it be for County Director, Mr. Sneed, to come before us for an update or any kind of information, whether it's in person or virtual?
I can definitely ask.
That would be something the chair could pursue.
Reach out to him tomorrow and see his availability for the next ATC in November, or if we can put together a call with whoever on the council or this committee, and he can give an update. I have his planners as well to give an update on what they're doing, because he's been doing some really neat things with expanding service and a lot of other wayfinding things. They've toyed around with microtransit for the South County Connector, the Deal, Edgewater stuff, and further north. But I think he could give a nice update on how that's connecting with us.
Yeah.
I can check.
Especially Ward 3 being right there next to the county, but also our students at Annapolis High School and how that all is integrated into what they do. It would be good, but that's at the behest of the chair, if that's okay with her.
Sure.
Okay.
Could be in person or it could be virtual, either one.
I will definitely check.
Thank you.
Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, on that topic, we did get to, Director Sneed did join us on the Sweden trip.
Good.
So we got to, for half of it, so we did get to chat a bit about transportation priorities and also some overlap. I know in particular, he has interest in trying to get a bus connection to New Carrollton and BWI.
Yes.
They do have one that's kind of roundabout up to BWI, but I looked at it and it would have taken me like an hour and a half or more to get up there versus just a half-hour drive.
Yeah.
So it really made no sense. New Carrollton's much more easy. It's just a straight shot, but I think he's trying to look for funding, and obviously I told him, well, maybe we can do some kind of cooperation there, because I think it'd be in obviously city interest as well.
Yeah. Some time ago, we had this route called 921. It wasn't operated by the city of Annapolis, but it did go to New Carrollton. I'm not sure who, I forgot the guy's name. He probably ran it through MTA Baltimore. It was definitely not a sub of ours, but it wasn't as reliable. But more than 8 or 9 years ago, probably just before I got here, we had something, the Cromwell station, to get to BWI, I think, as well, and maybe even in Arundel Mills. And those are long routes, because when we had the Gold going from the community college to Edgewater, back in the day was the Kmart, that was a 2-hour loop. And then I think what the county did is broke it down into north and south and changing out at the mall, making it 1 hour. That was probably very underutilized, so they're doing some things there to see how you keep that connectivity with the college and the South County Connector, and I think that's some of the microtransit. But I agree, we got to figure out ways of maybe an express, and how do you get to Cromwell, because you have so many options there with the MTA light rail and all, and other buses from the RTA, which is, the old Howard County Transit, to get around Columbia and all, making transfers there and at Arundel Mills.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think there's been some talk with the county as far as making a transit hub at the mall. I don't know what the status is of that, but that'll be something good to ask Mr. Sneed when he comes.
I got, if I may.
Yeah.
Talking to Sam last year, that was exactly what was happening on the west side of the mall, Bestgate side.
Yeah.
But I think what was going on with the new ownership of the mall, I think that's all been settled. So it may come back to being, they have the whole design and engineer of where it was going to go on that corner of Defense Highway and Bestgate. And because that, stopped for quite a while, it was going to go to Harry Truman Park and Ride. So you're right, that is a good question. Because the mall has settled with new ownership, is that back on the table to make that connection a hub on the west side of Westfield Mall? That was the big plan. Many presentations, and the design was already done, design and engineer years ago.
Yeah, it seems like a good use of space. However, there are challenges. I looked the other day because I was going to bike from work to a doctor's appointment, but there aren't even sidewalks on part of
That's good.
Harry Truman?
is that West Street? Or is it West Street turning Bestgate? The one that goes around, it's a continuation, I guess, of West Street. But anyway, where it comes around the mall, there's often no sidewalk, no crosswalk. I know that's county, but if they turn it into a hub, they're going to need to make sure the only way to get there right now would be either driving or potentially bus.
Yeah.
But I digress a little bit. So the other, just an observation, you mentioned observation from the Sweden, I just wanted to mention a couple throughout there. The transit departments over there run their ferry, they're turning their ferries into electric ferries, but they run the whole gambit of transportation over there. So as we develop maybe something to think for the next budget, as we develop our potential ferry system, how your department fits into that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the RFP for the electric ferry comes down next week. I want to say the 14th or 18th rings a bell in my mind for this. Then you have the meeting for the top three are there. Hopefully we'll see that in the next 9 months, 10 months as far as a prototype. But you're absolutely right with how that starts out with the new city dock to the 5th Street landing as it's being proposed. I see that kind of coming under the harbor master, or maybe, but I'm not sure if it is a part of transportation. But I think that's for council's review to see where it best resides and how that's managed the seaside.
Yeah, or city manager, but I think it may make sense for your department. Your department's already taken on some of the cycling components, so it might make sense to, but in any case, that's certainly worth more discussion in the future. The other thing to note, again, this is actually an improvement from the Netherlands, surprised to say, but their transit system in Sweden was even more developed than the Netherlands. Netherlands cycling's above and beyond best in the world, but Sweden, they're in transit, so it's super easy to get on and off the train. It wasn't free necessarily, but all you had to do is tap your phone, tap your credit card, if they ask. You can just get on the train. There's no thing to check in on, but they have a conductor occasionally, and it's on the kind of the honor system to a certain degree. But if they come around, then you have to. Actually, I guess there is a thing you check in.
You're supposed to, like we had.
You can scan your. But it's so they want to maximize people coming on and off. So once you get on, you can scan it yourself. But I don't know if that's something we could do with our buses, but that I think would help address the easy access and not having to find spare change. Is just because everybody has a phone or a credit card. Just go on there, scan it, and
Yeah, our system there that we have can have the add-ons. There's a lot of companies that were up and coming when we got this 7 years ago, like Token Transit, that would do your ability to have that fare card that'll be interchangeable in other systems. I'm trying to think of who uses it in Maryland. There are a few. And one of the things I've been trying to discuss, I'm a part of the BRTC, which is the Baltimore Regional Transportation Commission. It's just started this year. But looking at the connectivity, they have their Charm card. And when I was operating Howard County Transit, which is now the RTA, that Charm card would work on my system there as well. Unfortunately, we don't have a reciprocal for ours. So somebody coming in from Baltimore that has anything greater than 1 day can change their bus, the 70 bus, downtown to go to the mall or to the neighborhoods, but they can't go the other way. I mean, they can't come back in, but once they transfer at Church Circle or Weston Calvert, they can continue their journey. Somebody buying Annapolis Transit computation of more than a day pass can't do that on MTA. So those are the things we would like to look at, that kind of connectivity. And we couldn't even do it with Anne Arundel County Transportation. You know, they still, I think, I'm not sure where their funds are coming from for their free travel. I know Chair Mr. Regal here from the board is, you know, advocating for free transportation on our service, and that's something that's being looked at the TDP as well. But your point well taken as far as, you know, having this one card that can look at these systems all within our area. You know, we only have a few, and if you just look at 30-mile radius, I know we have Montgomery County, Prince George's County, and Arundel County, but at the MTA. You know, further than that, that may be something different, but where are we trying to go? We talked about New Carrollton, we talked about Cromwell, we talked about Baltimore. So those are the main hubs, because there's a lot of jobs here at Fort Meade, and, you know, the mall and all that kind of stuff. So it's something worth exploring.
well, are those all going to be talked about in the, what was it, the transit development plan?
Yes, as far as I know. I have to take a deeper dive, and let me see if I can find out and get information back to you. But I know, looking at the fare-free part of it, is the connectivity, the same.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, we've kind of had our vote on the fare free. I'm more interested in this point as far as connectivity and route changes, but also is the Transit Development Plan going to talk about the electric transition and goals?
Exactly. Yes, it will. Okay. KFH, the transportation planners, have been hired on by the MDOT, MTA for all of the lots, locally operated transit systems in the state of Maryland. So Anne Arundel County did use KFH. So they're very familiar with that agency and what they all do. So that is the biggest thing, because when we come together with our riders, with our stakeholders, with our advisors, with the school board and all, those are some of the questions that come up. You know, we sometimes will look at what's in it for me. And so me may be the whole, you know, Annapolis High School, which is most of the students are coming from the city of Annapolis, but it resides in the county. So we're covered with all the middle and elementary, but the high school, we're not. So looking at what the county is doing and what we're doing, you're absolutely right. That's got to be an agenda item and on the plate. But I can definitely find out, and I'll definitely keep you abreast of when the next, if there's going to be one more stakeholder advisory meeting.
Well, can we get them to present? Can you present to us on the? I kind of like to see the transit development plan before it's finalized, so we can give some input. But
and that was what, you know, as far as those meetings were for. Let me see what I can get them to do. You know, to come out and present where they are now. Maybe the next meeting, or have another work session.
We are stakeholders too.
Yes, you are. You were invited. Yes.
Well, I mean, I personally would rather do it at this meeting, because I don't have too much, because we're going to be here already, and I don't have too much time to go to other meetings. One last thing, can Madeline just bring up that picture? So as far as the electric transition, this is a picture from Sweden. They did it. So again, I said they're all 100% electric now, or renewable for their transit. This is a bus stop they put in a library just to make the point that, hey, the buses are quiet, no emissions, completely non-disruptive, right?
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things my son noticed when we were walking around town is that, hey, it doesn't stink here. There's
Yeah.
no exhaust.
Yeah.
You can hear each other and talk because there aren't loud cars. And so,
You can
Again,
hear when the bus
that-
hits you.
That's a really good point. As we are getting, as you know, the city of Annapolis, we do have a few electric vehicles, and they can sneak up on you. So they do have a little bit of a hum, and yeah, I think you have one as well. They are very quiet.
I did ask that about the bus, and they said, well, the bus makes noise anyway because it's a big machine with tires, but it's still a lot quieter.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Okay.
Anyway,
But I want to continue on. I'd like to invite up Mr. John Kemp, Regional Manager, Senior Manager of SP Metropolis. I think you guys might have a few questions about our going gateless. So the Metropolis platform, he's got some very interesting statistics and facts to share. John.
Good afternoon, John Kemp with Metropolis or SP Plus. So as an update to our meeting, our visit last month, both the Gott's Court Garage and the Knighton Garage went live with the Metropolis platform deployment Monday of last week. Things are going great so far. Anecdotally, at subsequent meetings, we can bring in some more data and some views of what an attendant in the garage is able to see and how you can understand how they might interact in a positive way with the user base. They're deployed with iPads right on their person, and they're able to circulate and quickly identify who's who and help them through the system to the degree it's needed. Anecdotally, I'll say, as we certainly suspected, and I shared a little bit last time, the great efficiency gain, the most powerful feature and bit of feedback that we're getting is the understanding that once a transient parker, a visiting parker, has gone through the transaction that first time, they're done. They don't need to do it again. They don't need to do it if they come and visit tomorrow. They don't need to do it again if they go visit the Knighton Garage, assuming they parked in the Gott's Garage first. Visitors from Washington, D.C. or Baltimore or Philadelphia or any city where they've engaged the platform before pull into Gott's Court Garage. They get a text welcoming them, and when they exit, they get a receipt via the text as well. Again, without having to engage the system beyond that first time. You know, once you're through that initial process, you just need to manage the potential expiration of one's credit card, like we all do, or the addition of a different license plate or the subtraction of a license plate, whether that be a rental car or a new personal vehicle or a different personal vehicle. So we're getting it's very good to hear that feedback. I mean, obviously that's the feature that's the most popular feature to consider as we make that transition. So it's nice to hear folks embracing that. Additionally, I will say it's also very well received, very, very well received by folks as they understand that when they are pulling in and then subsequently pulling out, they're not needing to monitor their device for their time expiring, whether they need to extend or do any of that. They are being charged for the amount of time they've parked, period. The only violators, so to speak, are those who ignore the system altogether and enter and exit without engaging.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead.
all right, so what happens if they just drive and they don't register? What happens?
They'll be in an enforcement queue and they will receive a citation. So we'll
Track it based on their license plate?
yeah.
What do they get charged for if they don't register?
Same as if you were to fail to pay a meter on the street, $50.
Okay. And remind me what fare model you're utilizing. So is it where they have to keep updating hours or?
No. So you as a driver, you enter. If you entered at 8 a.m. and this is your first visit, you'll scan the QR, phone number, license plate, form of payment, off to your meeting, if you will. Maybe you get a validation there, and that's certainly fine too, and that can be applied. If you exit by, you've entered at 8, if you exit by 9:45, you'll be charged for 2 hours. If you stay for 3 hours, you'll be charged for 3 hours. There is no adding time or selecting an amount of time.
Okay. Are you listening premium parking? Because that is still the number one complaint. They're not here?
Yeah.
Oh. All right. Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, so it acts like a gated garage where you pulled a ticket and it's time to exit, and you're paying and it's time to go, and you're being charged for the amount of time you're there.
Okay.
Just as yeah.
Okay. I thought I had another question coming out of that, but
2 hour free.
oh, well, yeah. So do you track residents? Like if they register and they're a resident, how do you handle the 2 hour free thing?
So residents who, of course, are able to benefit with the 2 hours of free parking in any city garage, they, as before, so before, up until Friday, a couple of Fridays ago, they would have engaged our office and received chaser tickets that they would use at exit or at the pay on foot station. Now they engage us. They can do it in person, but we can certainly help them via phone or email. And we're working on a form to make it even a little bit easier to receive their unique QR code, or their QR code that is unique to them. And rather than keeping tickets in their vehicle, they'll keep this one QR code in their vehicle. And we can refresh that for them, resend it to them, help them very quickly remotely. And then one question you've raised a couple of times, certainly the last meeting, was whether we can associate the validations, or this validation, or presumably other types of validations, to populations of license plates, right?
Yeah.
And so that topic is brought up. I've been on 2 technical calls with our team, so they understand how important it is to Annapolis. Fortunately, there are other viable use cases for large groups, which helps move the development or prioritize the development team, or orient the development team to certain things. So that's good. I was glad to hear people from New York on that same call and making the case. A different reason, different population, a different use case, but the same principles nonetheless.
Well, it seems like it would. If we're talking about the same thing, essentially just reading license. You have people's addresses. When you read license plates, why not match them up to city address? It seems like that'd be less administrative headache to do that, right? Because then you just set up the computer to do it automatically.
Well, that'd be a step further. That would be certainly welcome. Yeah, it's not hard for us to verify.
Yeah, I mean, they do it right. They use license plate technology in some cities when they, for congestion pricing or whatnot, connect you with. But in any case, I guess keep us posted on that effort, because that would also allow us, if we wanted to, at some point, ever adjust that 2 hour free period and reduce it or increase it. We'd have that flexibility.
Right. So I have a question about it. So if I register today, then I go in tomorrow. I don't have to do anything. I just drive in. But if I want that 2 hour free, I drive in and pull up the app and scan the code.
Yeah. So you'll get a text. Welcome, Alderwoman O'Neill, and you would just click that link, and you'd be able to scan your QR right there in that session.
Okay. So that's where some of the confusion is lying with people that are thinking that they're getting 2 hours free but getting charged, is that we're telling them it's super easy. You only have to put it in once. You don't have to do it again. But if you want the 2 hours, you do.
Oh, yeah.
So
Let's
we
not tell them
need
they have to use the validation needs to be entered anytime you're in
Right. So we need to tweak our marketing a little bit to just, as a byline, say that.
Yeah.
At least for now.
That's interesting. Yep. I suspect that yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't think that the published marketing says anything like that, but I can certainly understand how word of mouth, changes just a couple of words, and how we could internalize that differently. Yep.
Okay, I appreciate that. I had a quick question about, so it's on me, but I thought that Park Place, Knighton, and Gott's were all the same gateless system, but they're not.
They're not yet on the same platform. So Gotts and Knighton rolled out at the same time, and we're working on getting Park Place up to date.
Okay, but Park
ASAP.
Place rolled out
Different platform.
on a different platform.
Call it a 1.0, version 1.0. And,
But it's
and this
being
is-
converted to the other platform.
That's the
so
plan.
then
That
it'll
is
be
the
all
plan.
one. One of the biggest complaints I get about Park Place is that if you go in and you go down a level, you lose internet.
This is true. But the signs down there, the signs there are all orient folks to proceed upstairs to where there will be cell service. And we have similar, in the basement levels of both Gotts Court and Knighton, there's no cell service down there, and the signs direct folks to go upstairs for cell service.
To do the
So what we don't do is put QR codes in areas where there is no cell service, because that would be frustrating. So we
Right.
don't put a QR there, thus, okay, well, I have to go upstairs, and that's where there'll be a QR code when I've got cell service.
So do they have that same 15-minute?
Oh, there's a grace, yes, correct.
Grace
There is a grace
period.
period, 100%,
Okay.
yes.
So that was the biggest worry, is like, oh my gosh, I have to drive back up, find the cell service,
Oh, no,
click in,
you just
and go
walk
back
up.
down.
No,
Okay.
you just take the elevator up, and the signs are right there as you exit the elevators at Park Place.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my last one was actually for premium, but I've had a bunch of people ask if there could be some sort of color coding on Hillman's floors, because it's confusing the way and so even if the poles, as you turn corners, were different colors, so that people could say, I parked in green, at least they'll have some semblance of where exactly they parked. A bunch of people wandering around. I've had 4 different people call me and say, I can't find my car. Residents that are friends, but color coding that garage. Did you have questions for premium?
No, I
I mean, for SP Plus? Okay. Margus, one of my questions for premium was, when we sat here last time, we discussed that $50 fee for going over time frame. Have you had any discussions with them on
Yeah.
where that is in the plans?
It's being discussed, as you remember, well, as you know, Premium has been hired on by Amber Infrastructure. They're the manager of the operator, not the city. So that is under review or discussion with the company that hired them to do this whole project, this P3 project. So they're looking into it.
All right. And, okay. And then, I totally lost my train of thought. Go ahead.
Silly question. How much leeway, flexibility, negotiation do we have overall when it comes to these issues that we're talking about? Is it readily acceptable? Generally, is there pushback? Is there gnashing of teeth? I'm just curious because over time, we all know we've had some issues. I don't know how much leverage we have legally, and I'm not looking to our Office of Law, but what?
Are you speaking specifically with Premium? Or not
Yeah.
with,
Well, kind of both, I guess.
well, remember, SP Metropolis is they've been hired on by the city. Whereas the P3 arrangement is tied in, the garage and city dock. It's a totally different contract of a
Right.
concession agreement that is not a direct recipient of any department within the city. So going to Premium, they'd have to go to their manager, which is Amber Structure. You have the concessionaire, the manager, the city, and the operator. It's a little bit different than our relationship with Metropolis. I want to keep calling. SP is now Metropolis, yes. So it's a little bit different there.
Because the emails that we get from residents seem to have that underlying theme, like, why can't we do something legally. And that's why I'm kind of asking the question. I don't know the answer, but that seems to kind of be floating out there.
Yeah, that is more of a legal question. With the P3 agreement, it's not just tied into one aspect, let's say parking. It is all tied in with the redevelopment, reimagined city dock. It's all been put together with, the investors, bondholders, and how that all works. It's one part of the bigger picture that I don't have the answer to.
Thank you for that, what I listened to lately, that non-answer. No, just joking. I get it. That's it. Okay, fine. Thank you, Director Moore.
Yeah.
I know it's a sensitive topic. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you very much. I appreciate the update and looking forward to having more gateless and less people with questions. That's really fantastic. Thanks so much.
Thank you again.
All right. Is there any other topic that anybody would like to discuss? No? All right. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.